My name is Akash Vaghela, and I'm the founder and CEO of RNT Fitness, and we are the world's leading transformation company for busy, high-performing men and women around the world. I'm really struggling with mental health, so I don't think I can do this anymore. To me, it's like, well, that is the reason you should be doing this. And I gained 7 kilos in 7 days when I went on holiday. I went on to an all-inclusive straight away, gained 7 kilos in 7 days, and then 6 weeks later, I was back to 13 kilos up. A total of 13 kilos up 6 weeks after the show. That person who's lost 30 kilos, they're now in a new 60 kilo body, but their brain and their mindset and their behaviors and their identity are still connected to that 90 kilo person. There's 3 key levels: self-accountability, peer accountability, and coach accountability. The acceleration of artificial intelligence, I think that's going to take the industry to the next level as well in many ways. If you're more of a visionary, it's to find your integrator. I think it's the best hire you can make. It's never been easier to start a business, but it's never been harder to stay in business.
Just quickly before we get into the full show, for any of you who's watched this podcast before, you will know that I am super passionate about this podcast and getting on the most interesting guests to help you get better results with your fat loss, your business, your life, and your coaching skills. But at the moment, 85% of you who watch this channel aren't subscribed to the channel. The bigger the channel gets, the better the guests get, the more high production value the show gets, as well as the clips get. So if you're watching this, please, can you click subscribe, like, comment, improve interaction so YouTube know we are a channel to be reckoned with. And then we can take over, and then I'm coming for you, Joe Rogan. So Akash, I've been looking forward to this conversation because I've had a lot of people that have been in the fitness industry a very, very long time and built very, very successful both online and in-person businesses on the show over the last 115 odd episodes. But I've never had someone on the show that's done so well that I have seen the rise from relatively the humble beginnings of his journey. So for people who don't know about you and RNT Fitness, just give us a brief intro in who you are and what you do as your online training company.
Yeah, so my name is, first off, thanks for having me on the show, Simon.
Hey, very happy.
It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Akash Vaghela, and I'm the founder and CEO of RNT Fitness. And we are the world's leading transformation company for busy, high-performing men and women around the world. We started in May 2017, and we've since helped over 3,000 people in 25 different countries using a unique and proven 5-phase methodology that we've written a book about called Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life. And effectively, my mission with RNT Fitness is to help people use the physical transformation as a vehicle to do things they never thought possible. And this all starts with my own journey back when I first started training when I was 17 years old as a skinny fat kid with moves in a pot belly. I lacked that self-esteem and self-confidence that I wish I had. And training gave me a level of focus, control, and confidence that I never knew was possible, and it allowed me to do things I didn't think were possible. And ever since then, it's been effectively my life's calling to give people that same experience where they can use the physical as a vehicle to improve their own lives. So that's a very quick rundown of who I am and RNT Fitness as a whole.
And just for anyone listening who doesn't know about RNT Fitness, definitely go and give the business Akash a follow. And I can wholeheartedly say from long before even RNT Fitness started, how good you guys are. And you are generally, like everyone says, the world's leading online personal training company. That's almost like banded about. But the results you've had over the last, I cannot believe it's been about, 5-6 years now?
Yeah, it'll be 6 years in May, actually.
Which is mental. And a book that I've read, and I struggle with reading, but I've read your book cover to cover.
Oh, amazing. Thank you very much.
And thoroughly good read. So, do you think you've always been relatively entrepreneurial? Do you think it's sort of like nature or nurture that's allowed you to not only do well on the gym floor personal training route, and I've seen your work ethic, but take that online and do even more, successful?
Yeah. So I think at heart, I've always been an entrepreneur. I think when I think about now, what do I love more than anything? I love talking business. I love building businesses. I love talking to people about business, inside and outside of fitness, mainly outside. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit, but I never knew how to channel it. When I was 17, I was selling protein tubs on the back of my car to my friends. When I was at university, I was hosting fitness classes in my room. I was training people for free. But when I left university and I started working as a personal trainer in the city, I had a number of adventures, I call it now, where I tried to start businesses, but nothing really landed for me. In that, I was a personal trainer on the gym floor, and there was two things. One was a clothing business that I was doing on the side. That
I remember that.
Do you remember that, right?
I remember that.
Yeah, the Gucci Muscle
Gucci
clothing
Muscle.
brand, which I did. I had made a bit of money, but it wasn't that exciting for me because it didn't really speak to me in any way. And then I also nearly set up a dessert lounge. Don't know if you remember that one, but
No.
do you remember after I competed in bodybuilding in 2014, I struggled with my relationship with food for about a year. I was yo-yoing a lot. I've really found a struggle to get control of my food intake. And we probably knew each other then, but I don't know if you knew about this. But I was either struggling, just generally struggling with my food. But I ended up frequenting a lot of dessert lounges. And I was with my mum, and I was like, "What do you think? What do you think the numbers are on these places?" And we ended up deciding that the numbers look pretty good here. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to set my own place up. So had this whole concept, and I found a place, just about to sign the lease, and I was like, this is in 2015, and I was like, hold on a second, how can I be a personal trainer in the day where I'm already working flat out and moonlight as a dessert lounge owner? It didn't make any sense, right? So there'd always been like things I'd been interested in. I come from my mom's an entrepreneur. My grandfather, when he came from Uganda to England when they got kicked out by Idi Amin in 1972, he had a business there. And when he first landed in the refugee camp, he was selling utilities to all the people in the refugee camps. So he was like a born and bred entrepreneur. So a lot of my cousins on my mom's side are as well. So it's like, I think it's in my blood. So I've always loved it, but I never had anything that really spoke to my soul, and I never had anything that really spoke to my passions. And when I look back at why I didn't start something sooner, it's because I just loved what I was doing as a personal trainer. I almost felt like I was like doing my own thing anyway. I loved being a personal trainer. I loved helping people. I knew I was doing what I was here meant to do. But it got to around 2016, and I started seeing my colleagues on the gym floor having children. And what was happening is I remember speaking to a few of them, and I was like, "Oh, when do you see your kids?" It's like, "I'll see them on Sunday." I was like, "What about during the week?" It's like, "Well, no, I'm out of the house at 5 and I get back at 8. And I was like, "Oh, hold on a second. I know in the future I want a family at some point. I want to be a present dad. I want to be an active dad. I'm not going to be able to do that as a personal trainer on the gym floor, working 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday. And if I don't work, I don't get paid. And my diary is controlled by clients. I might wake up at 4 a.m. and they might cancel their 6 a.m. session or whatever." And I thought, this isn't sustainable. What do I do? And this happened in around early 2016. And I was actually looking back through my journals recently, around 2015, 2016, and I kept writing, like, I was trying to figure out how can I stay in the fitness industry but not do what I'm doing at that time. And online training at the time wasn't really a big thing. It wasn't really a thing, but I knew that the world was going online. So I'd been helping some friends at the time around the country, just as like free pro bono work that I'd love to do. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So, I hatched a plan for RNT Fitness in 2016, and then executed the launch and launched it in May 2017. So, ever since I've launched it, I've never thought like, oh, what else could I do? Really, like this is all I love doing. And whilst I may not be directly involved with coaching now, because we've built a team and an infrastructure and a business around it, what I do very much feeds my soul and very much speaks to my purpose of what I'm here to do with helping people use the physical as a vehicle. Because whilst I may not be directly involved, everything I'm doing is helping inspire people to do so.
It's an interesting sort of crossroads you came to with sort of like the dessert lounge versus the health and fitness journey, because they are almost two polar opposites. From someone that's coming out, because I can imagine a lot of personal trainers have gone through periods where they're struggling with the relationship with food, right? And there's probably a lot of guilt associated around that. And that probably has a knock-on effect of your work if you're not feeling like you're practicing what you preach. What was it you thought? Because going back into the fitness industry would be either living with that guilt or taking ownership and taking control of that relationship with food. The easier approach is to continue down this path and open the dessert lounge in a way.
Yeah.
What was the thing that made you choose staying true to the route you were on, even if you were struggling with it?
Well, the first thing is I was never going to stop the personal training. I was going to plan on doing both. Don't know how. Like, looking back, we know those schedules, right? Don't quite know how I was going to do that. But the other thing was, I did feel a lot of guilt at the time. I did feel like I was being a hypocrite. I did feel like it didn't affect my work because I always saw my work as separate, and I saw like I have the knowledge to help people get their results, but I was struggling inside in that I didn't really know how to deal with the aftermath of getting shredded. No one really talked about it. No one really helped me with it. It's the complete responsibilities on myself. I had no idea what to do. There was no education on what to do after diets. I got in a really good shape, and then it was like, oh, what do I do now? And I gained 7 kilos in 7 days when I went on holiday. I went on to an all-inclusive straight away. Gained 7 kilos in 7 days, and then 6 weeks later, I was back to 13 kilos up. A total of 13 kilos up 6 weeks after the show. And I remember at the time, I was just like, yeah, it's water weight, or yeah, I'm putting on muscle. And, it was very much like bodybuilding environment we were in. So it was like, yeah, it's just old school bodybuilding environment of like, yeah, just water weight, balloon back up. And I think that's why I built that 5-phase methodology. And you read about it in the book where I talk about the consolidation phase. And I talk about this quite a lot actually in the book, right? The 2014 experience. And it's why now I'm so focused on helping people after their diet, and why we sell 12-month minimum packages at RNT Fitness, because I'm like, if you get in shape and then you just leave because you're excited and you think you know what you're doing, you're going to probably rebound and gain all the way back in 3 months' time. So I did feel a lot of guilt, and I used to, do you remember I used to wear like 2 t-shirts? There was all that joke, I could wear 2 t-shirts. A lot of it. There's 2 reasons. One, I felt like a skinny PT, and I felt like I was basically a bigger skinny fat version than I used to be. When I first started training, when I was 58 kilos, except now I was like 75, 80 kilos or whatever it was. And I was still skinny fat. So I used to wear 2 t-shirts to try and, help make myself look bulkier and fitted, and I look back, and it was actually, the reason I bring this up is I was actually on a call the other day with someone who's telling me about, they feel really that all they want to achieve in 2023 is being able to fit in their t-shirts again and feel confident. And he's like, oh, I wear layers, so I look bulkier. And I thought, I completely forgot that I used to do that. And I think if we had this conversation last week, I probably wouldn't have even mentioned it, because it almost become a memory I just forgotten about. And I was like, wow, I used to wear 2 t-shirts for most of my personal training career because I didn't feel like I had the physique I should have had. And it's interesting because this time last year, when I did my road to vegan shredded, I got to the end of it and I was like, I finally achieved the physique I've always wanted. But I went through a lot of like body dysmorphia and not really feeling like I had a good enough body for a long time. And it's only, I'd say, in the last 5 years, I've really cracked it. I've really cracked like my lifestyle solution. I've cracked having enough muscle mass I feel really comfortable with. I feel like I've got the physique I'd always wanted. And I feel really confident in myself and very confident in my own skin. Whereas in that period of dessert lounges and poor relationship with food and bodybuilding, my first experience of it, I don't think looking back, I wasn't in a good place at all.
What do you think was the things that sort of like broke that cycle? Because as you said, where we work was a hardcore bodybuilding style gym. And I remember before I joined there feeling pretty big, even though I absolutely wasn't. But I walked into that gym and I was forever small. And as you said, you've finally cracked it. You're in the shape that you feel proud to be in. But we're nowhere near the mass monsters you used to work with. So what's changed in terms of your relationship to your physique and breaking that sort of cycle of always feeling there could be more?
Yeah. So firstly, now I know when people are using steroids and when they're not. Back then, or before, I didn't really know that difference. And I didn't really appreciate the difference as well, because it's a whole different ballgame, right? So I don't compare myself to people that are using steroids. If people want to use steroids, completely fine. It's not for me. But I stopped looking at that as the ideal thing. I think the other, what was can you remind me what was the exact question again?
So like, how did you sort of like, one, like you've kind of answered already, how did you sort of like reframe what was good enough for you in terms of physique, and how did you almost get off that hamster wheel of not feeling enough in terms of feeling like you needed to wear 2 t-shirts? What changed to allow you to get to where you were recently?
I think probably my own self-development, just feeling more confident in myself, feeling more self-aware, understanding myself more. I think the steroid thing was a big one. I had a lot of steroid comments back in the day. So, people insinuating, should I take it? Should I not take it? Oh, I think you should take it. So that was playing a lot. And then I think actually building a physique that I always wanted to build was a big part of it. And I think a lot of my gains came 2017, 2018, 2019, when I really went for an aggressive off season, so to speak. And I think that really built the physique that I'd always wanted. And then when I got bodybuilding shredded in 2017, and I won my division, I got shredded glutes for the first time. I consolidated really well. I didn't have any issues with food. That was what really did it for me, because I was like, actually, I can control my physique. I can compete with the best. All the hard work I've put in for years has shown its rewards, and I'm really happy with my physique. And then it's got better and better over the last couple of years, and now I feel like I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve in bodybuilding, and that's why now I'm sort of exploring Muay Thai and exploring different sort of avenues of fitness, because for me, I feel like my bodybuilding chapter's done.
It's interesting as well, though. It's a lot of people. If you listen to sort of Chris Williamson, he talks about the menopause, where everyone sort of like starts bodybuilding until they're around about 30, and you'll start getting into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? We know all those people who live with that.
That's me now.
It is, but I think you're the first person I've listened to where I feel that is, you've done that because you've closed a chapter, rather than the priorities have just changed, right? And I think that's something that I think that shows to your proactiveness in terms of Go on.
I think it literally is that. Like, I got to the end of my shoot last year, and it was the best ever condition I've ever got. Like, my only annoyance was I couldn't compete in bodybuilding that year because the dates didn't align. I was like, I could have teared up the stage that year, because I got like so dug in my glutes that I never experienced before. Like, I was like, I got training glutes twice already before this, and I was like, damn, this is another level. Like, that was a dark place you had to go to get there. But I got to the end, I was like, look, there's nothing more for me to do here. Like, I don't have no interest in building more muscle. I feel happy with my physique. The risk reward ratio of building more muscle is not there for me anymore. Trying to add more weight to my RDL, or hack squat more weight, or floor press more, it's just not there for me. If I try and every time I try and make the jump, I just get injured, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that anymore.
When it comes to, like, you've mentioned the word consolidate a lot, and I think a lot of people struggle, coaches and their clients struggle with that post-diet thing. Tell us an overview of what that consolidation is, and what are the biggest thing coaches need to learn to be able to either get themselves or the clients to stay in shape that they're not doing?
The biggest thing is the shift between thinking the end of thinking. I'm so used to speaking in my terminology, I don't even know what the layman's term is. It's like thinking the checkpoint is just is the end. So by that I mean the moment that you get in the best shape of your life. Let's say you're a coach and you've helped someone get to a photo shoot condition. That photo shoot's the end. Like, if you get rid of that one framing, that usually changes the game. For me, it was like in 2014, I was so obsessed with the bodybuilding show, I didn't look at anything afterwards. Whereas I think what you need to do, coach or client, is treat that fat loss deadline as a checkpoint rather than a deadline, and then have a plan for what comes after for the next 4 to 8 weeks after. I think that's the most critical shift. Whereas if you just say fat loss is done, this whole thing's done, immediately you're just going to revert back to the old behaviors. A good analogy I always like to give, and this is probably more applicable for general population people, but let's say you go from 90 kilos to 60 kilos, you lose 30 kilos. That person who's lost 30 kilos, they're now in a new 60 kilo body, but their brain and their mindset and their behaviors and their identity are still connected to that 90 kilo person. So when they go out to the pub after they've lost 30 kilos and they haven't got a game plan, and they're with their friends, the same old friends they were with before, their natural instinct is just going to have 10 pints again, or order a 3-course meal a couple times a week without even thinking about it. All those behaviors that got them to 90 kilos are still there. So you're really stuck in this identity crisis when you're at 60 kilos. I'm just using this as an analogy. When you're at 60 kilos, that I'm still a 90 kilo person in there. So the reason why consolidation is so important is because you've got to firstly stabilize everything. But consolidation is just a start, because the next bit, which is we call the investment phase, is about rewiring the behavior, mindset, and identity. So someone can actually own that 60 kilo body and not revert back to the norm. But that takes a long time to happen, because and the research is quite clear now on it as well. It's like every year you keep your body weight off, you have a 50% more chance of keeping it off long term. So every year you hold body weight, it's easier to maintain. And a lot of it's because of identity, behaviors, and overall approach to food, lifestyle, and your day-to-day life.
I suppose, like, when I've looked at a lot of the research around habit tracking, you got the cue, you got the routine, you got a reward, right? And like in that, by changing the way you think around about the 60-kilo body, you're changing all those cues in your life because you're not putting yourself in those environments. You building new routines that now stayed when the deadline isn't there anymore.
Yeah.
I suppose the challenging thing with this sometimes, though, is like we hear about Olympians doing gold medal syndrome, where they get to the Olympics and all of a sudden, like that's it, and they feel depressed. And I feel the same sometimes with a photo shoot. Everything in your life is geared towards the show or the shoot or whatever the end date of this is, and then it's just Monday. And obviously, you've probably had people that have gone through the RNT system, or even yourself. I know you've done this a lot of times now, where you're going to feel that way. Like they're not almost expecting that. How do you get people to act in spite of no deadline or no urgency? There's no reason not to have the 10 pints anymore.
It's massive. That is the hard bit. And I think that's the hardest bit in coaching. But most trainers and coaches in the industry as a whole is geared towards what happens pre-checkpoint and pre-photo shoot and pre-holiday. The reason why we have a long-term commitment is because you need accountability to drive that identity change and instill the identity change. And what we talk a lot about internally is like living this lifestyle without a prize. And that's when you have to really work on the internal muck that's caused you to gain the weight in the first place. Because a typical journey for most people is, we'll carry on with the example. Someone's gone from like 75, 80 kilos. Next thing they know, they're 90 kilos, and they've gained weight to get to 90 kilos through poor food choices, etc. But the food choices are because of stress they haven't dealt with, or a relationship they should be out of, but they're using food to suppress it, or stress management, or whatever, bad job, all the things that cause people to gain weight, causes them to gain weight. And then now they lose the weight, and now they've got no prize. So when they're sitting at home watching Netflix, oh, I used to do that. Oh, my work's stressful. Let me just have a bit of this, bit of that, bit of this, bit of that. And next thing you know, it's a death by 1,000 cuts, right? You start off by having one chocolate bar, then you have 2 chocolate bars. Next thing you know, you're having a box a week, or you have a glass of red wine a night, then it's 2 glasses, then it's a bottle of wine a night. And next thing you know, you're back to 90. And I think the only way to really drill home this identity is through a lot of accountability. I think accountability is the driving force of identity change, because left to your own devices, you're going to slowly revert back to the norm. And it's a very hard concept for people to gauge until they mess up. So a lot of people that come to RNT now are typically people that have yo-yoed for years, have tried the quick fixes and failed, have lost weight in the past but gained it all back, and they're just fed up. They want a long-term approach now. And that's where we come in, and that's where we're nicely positioned. But if you don't emphasize this second half of the equation, so to speak, it will just be a slow reversion back to the norm. And it always happens. Like until it becomes a norm, you will always go back to it.
What are the key steps you think then to a successful accountability? Because this is something that it sounds obvious at face value, but I know I've struggled with this in the past. I know lots of other coaches struggle in the past. It's like there's this line between too much and too little. When it comes to you and your coaches, what things do you put in place to ensure your clients are looked after from an accountability standpoint?
Yeah, so we have, I'd say, probably 4. There's 3 key levels: self-accountability, peer accountability, and coach accountability. Self-accountability starts with actually investing in your health and fitness journey. So money, I think it's a big part of it, in that when people are invested in a program that they know that is helping them with that second half of the equation, they are more likely to continue to try and work on identity. Self-accountability comes in many ways. So investment, pictures, taking regular pictures. So for example, if I look back at 2014, I stopped taking pictures after I got it shredded. I stopped taking pictures for about a year because I didn't want to look at it. The weighing yourself daily. I think all these things are like self-accountability. Like, you can easily hide away from the scale. I stopped looking at the scale for 6 weeks. I was like, I'm just putting on water. Next thing I looked at it, I was like 13 kilos up. I was like, That's where it went wrong.
You go and buy a t-shirt from H&M, you find the right light, you go, I'm still shredded if I find the right light, and then all of a sudden you're 90 kilos ago. Yeah.
So
crunch and flex.
So that's all self-accountability. And then there's peer accountability. So the way we do this at RNT is through our cohorts. So we've got a very unique approach where in our own technology that we've built, we group members into cohorts of 10 people. So they have, it's not just a Facebook group where it's just a massive community. They have 10 people they're on the same journey with, and they're grouped together within the technology and platform that we built to increase and raise the stakes of peer accountability, because that's a very key part of identity change and just overall transformation is peer accountability. So people help each other on the journey, people are around each other on similar stages of the journey. So that's the next layer of accountability. Those two alone drive a lot of the actual accountability. And then it's just a factor of one more on top is the coach accountability, with question and answers. We do group transformation coaching calls, weekly updates, all the things that goes into coaching will be there as well. So you need all three, because you can throw all the accountability as a coach as you like. Hey, how's it going? Like, you can pester someone and chase someone. But ultimately, there needs to be a level of ownership and responsibility from the self-accountability. Someone needs to want to change or want to keep their change on, right? So all three layers are important to driving this transformation.
There's a couple of questions I have on the back of that, because obviously you mentioned earlier on of investment being one of the biggest parts of self-accountability, and I couldn't agree more with you. This is the reason why the cheat programs very rarely work. I think where we worked previously and why our gym was so successful, other than of course the best trainers in the world, was the fact that our price point was just a bit scary for the people we dealt with compared to some of the other places where it was just back pocket change. But if I'm correct, do you get people to pay for the year up front? Or do they have a payment plan option?
Yeah, they can do both. So you can either pay up front or you can pay in quarters.
So I'm intrigued, because if I don't know, this probably is, knowing you, this is something you probably have looked at. Do you see a difference between the success rates and the adherence to the people that pay in quarters over the people paying full? And the reason why I ask this is sometimes I think that you'll get more commitment initially if someone's put down that initial scary payment. But once you're 3 to 6 months in, like maybe at the end of that first checkpoint, that money's out of their account. They're not thinking about it anymore. It's now gone money. Whereas the person who's got another quarter paying up is like, okay, I need to step this up again.
Yeah. I've not seen any correlation to that. Ultimately it comes down to whether the person wants to do it or not. And one thing I've noticed over the last few years is the first trigger isn't often enough for people. So someone's first trigger to sign up might be, I want to look like that guy, or my shirts don't fit tight enough. My shirts are a bit tight now, so let me try and do something about this. But they often need a second life-altering moment where it's like, shit, if I don't change now, things are going to go real bad. I think that's the first thing. The second thing I've noticed is since COVID, I think people use mental health as an easier way out. Now, just without sounding, that's not to be taken on face value. What I mean by this is because we work with a lot of people. So we have I don't listen to other people. I don't listen to any fitness podcasts or health podcasts for me, because I think I've got the best research lab going on for myself. I don't need to look elsewhere. For me, I can just see what's going on. And one thing I've seen 100% for sure is since COVID, people use excuses around mental health as a way out of dealing with their transformation. And the reason why I think there's a problem is because I think one of the best ways to help with your mental health is physical transformation. But what ends up happening is there'll be a scenario where it's like, really struggling with mental health, so I don't think I can do this anymore. And to me, it's like, well, that is the reason you should be doing this. And I've just seen it happen more and more since COVID. And I think since COVID as well, because the world is more online and people are more online in many aspects of their life, and they're more in a digital space in many aspects, engagement can sometimes be up and down depending on how bombarded someone is. So I think as a coach, as a company, it becomes more and more important to create friction on the front end for letting people in, because having the right type of people has never been more important. Because I think people use any reason not to do something now. It's become more and more obvious. And in the last few years, I think as a consumer in fitness, you're looking for any way not to do this. Like I had someone we had heard someone the other day, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, "Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" And she goes, "Yeah, just I thought I got kicked out of the program because I got taken back to my onboarding screen 3 months ago. So I just assumed I got kicked off because I wasn't using it." I said, "You do realize that was just an update to the platform, so you just had to tick a button at the top?" She's like, "Oh, I didn't realize. Like, did you ask anyone about it?" She's like, "No." I was like, "Okay, how's things been going since?" Like, "Not good." I was like, "What? How did you use the fact that you had to just tick a box on the onboarding screen as a reason not to do anything?" And I just think that I just hear that more and more. And I don't know if it's something I'm just seeing or if it's just sort of a general sort of thing. But a friend of mine in a completely different space, in like the private equity world, he was saying, like, he was saying there's something similar happening there in their workforce where people work rate or work ethic is changing because of various reasons. I don't know. Maybe it's. I always try and like speculate what's going on. So for me, that was something interesting, and I can't remember if I've gone on completely a different tangent here.
But I think that's really interesting because like I have been feeling exactly the same way over the last like 12 to 18 months, and I for a while I was thinking, am I just a grumpy old bastard? That's sort of like the folk singer now. It's like back in my day, we used to give everyone. But this is true, right? Let's cast our minds back for when we worked together. Every single one of our clients got steak and nuts for breakfast. MyFitnessPal was yet to exist. We gave them a tough low-carb meal plan. And while it was hard, a lot of people just did it. We didn't have this. We have to WhatsApp them every day. Otherwise, they're just going to fall off the plan. And I'm like, has the world changed? Or have I got my blinkers on to the fact that, something's happening?
I've noticed that. Yeah. And I don't know what the difference is. I think there's probably a number of different factors, but I think because there's more inbound happening than ever, I think ultimately you got to take responsibility, right? It's up to you to do this. But from the perspective you just mentioned, the world is effectively conspiring against you to be healthy. And this is no reason. I don't think it's an excuse, but I think with more options available, fast food is easier, easier ways out, COVID, all these things. I think it requires, like you just said, you can WhatsApp someone daily, but does that really do anything? Or does it come back to my first point? Does someone just need to have that second life-altering experience where it's like, this can't continue? And I think that's what it is.
I had a theory. I think it's very similar to what you just said. There's an element of life has become more difficult in the sense, as you said, it's bombardment. People have no brain space. So the fitness or the food prep or that little thing that you're now adding is just top of that stress cup. But I also think there's an element of life becoming so comfortable now, like Deliveroo. If I want to go on something, have Netflix. Everything is at our fingertips, that we seek out discomfort, like ice baths. As much as I believe in the science of ice baths, 10 years ago, this wouldn't be a thing. People going, my life's so comfortable, I need a challenge, so I'm going to get in the cold ice bath or in the sea. That we're seeking out discomfort because the world has become too comfortable. And that almost to me is like, this could be part of the problem. I don't know. Yeah. I'm speculating like you were saying.
Yeah. I mean, I love a challenge. I always try and test myself in some sort of physical endeavor, because I think orchestrating, obviously I'm using this word lightly, but orchestrated suffering can do a lot for your self-development and can do a lot for your own mental health and just overall discipline in your life. I think living a disciplined life brings many benefits. And I've always enjoyed some sort of that's why I enjoy just getting absolutely shredded. Like, yeah, we've probably since I last saw you, I've done 3 shredded glutes endeavors, and nothing has given me more introspection, ideas, and insights about myself than doing that. Like, it just puts me through the absolute ringer. And I think this is where you can use the physical transformation as a vehicle to take your life to the next level. And this is just on a coach's note. Going online doesn't mean you stop all this. Going online doesn't mean you stop walking the walk. I've interviewed and seen hundreds and hundreds of applications over the last few years for coaches. And there's 3 criteria I'm always looking for. It's number 1, you walk the walk. And by that, I mean, you don't need to be shredded year round, but you need to show evidence of 3 things for us specifically. 1, in that you've taken yourself to the absolute extreme fat loss. 2, you've actively tried to build muscle and actually shown to build muscle. And 3 is you've stayed in shape for an extended period of time. If you can do, every coach should be able to do those 3 things if they're in the body composition niche. The second thing is you need to be always willing to learn. I think that's why you're doing some great work with this aspect where you want coaches to learn and take their continued professional development to the next level. Because we know now, so there's never been lower barriers to entry to become an online personal trainer. For example, you can just tomorrow your mum could set up a page which says Mrs. Dutton online coach, and no one's going to know any different between Mrs. Dutton online coach and Simon Dutton online coach, right? So there's that aspect. So you got to be willing to learn, and with that, taking feedback, being willing to invest in your own education. So that continues to be a requirement, no matter whether you're on the gym floor or online. I think if you are online, working online now, you need to continue to do so and continue to orchestrate your own challenges on a regular basis. If you don't have any, because it will push you in new ways and add tools to your toolbox that you didn't have before. I always talk about you can't go to the extreme if you can't take your clients to the extreme if you haven't been to the extreme yourself. And it's easy to forget that. You can't be like, oh yeah, I did a photo shoot 10 years ago. Yeah, great. You've forgotten how your life has changed since then, right? So every couple of years, I think it's worth taking yourself to the extreme so you can rebuild that empathy, but also learn more tools in the toolbox. And you remember what your clients are going through on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's very hard to replace that. You can't learn that in a textbook. You have to go through it yourself.
I couldn't agree more with that. The biggest lesson I've ever learned is by going through this process myself numerous times. Yeah. And I feel sometimes like we see coaches now where I have this bit of pet hate on Instagram now where people go, you need to get in a calorie deficit, you need a progressive overload. I'm like, well, no shit, Sherlock. How are your clients doing that? I need more. How are they getting into a deficit? And if you've never done that before, if everything's a textbook, if everything's the course you've just done, and you've never gone through that, you don't know strategies, and your clients need strategies. Do you think online coaching now, in the same way that you're saying that people are more likely to sort of find any excuse not to get in shape, do you think now with the rise of the online coaching business mentor that people are going for the quick fix, how much can I put in my bank balance, before doing the longer game and the hard work of maybe working for a company for a period of time, maybe doing the graft on the gym floor you did for a bit, and actually learning how to get a good product rather than trying to put immediately going into a mentorship?
Yeah, good question. I think, firstly, I think most fitness business mentors are complete scam artists. I think most of them haven't built an actual business. I know many fitness business mentors. I know some of them personally, and I know firsthand they have never built a business. They've never scaled a business. They've never done the numbers that they're saying they're doing. So that's the first thing. I think secondly, I think most people are playing the short game in the fitness industry. It's always been that way. It'll continue to be that way. Whether it was on the gym, when it was more of a personal training, commercial gym sort of model, where it's just rinse and repeat. The reason why the personal training industry has a fast turnover is because of the industry itself. I think online coaching is going through I think the fitness industry has basically matured very, very quickly because of COVID. So it's all gone online. And now what we're seeing is everyone and their dog has become an online coach. What we're going to see in the next 3 to 5 years is the cream rise to the crop, rise to the top. So there's going to be a big separation in the next couple of years where the trainers who genuinely actually like this, not just think, oh yeah, I can make a couple of grand extra this month. Let me do this. Or the side hustles that we see people do this as. The people that actually want to do this, people that play the long game, people that invest in their education, people that actually genuinely care about their clients and want to help people in this world, they will, and the ones that want to persist through the ups and downs of this as well, because I don't, but new people in the industry are made to believe that this is easy. It's easy to build an online coach. Oh, easy to be an online coach. Oh, it's easy to get clients. It's easy to do this. No, it's not, because it's easy to get a few clients, but what happens in 3 months when they leave you? What's going to happen then? What's going to happen when all your client base leave, or whatever happens in business happens. it's never been easier to start a business, but it's never been harder to stay in business. And I think that's going to separate a lot of people in the next 3 to 5 years, because I think COVID accelerated the growth of the industry very quickly and took everyone online when it probably still had a few years of not doing that. It took it very quickly. Now we're like, okay, there's a lot of people here. What's going to happen next? And for me, I just see it as like in the next 3 to 5 years, the cream will rise to the crop. The industry will separate. And as we're seeing now with the acceleration of artificial intelligence, I think that's going to take the industry to the next level as well in many ways.
I agree. Do you think with this, you're saying that it's easier to start a business, but harder to sustain a business? Do you think I think we're in a very unique industry where sometimes people are almost pushed either foolishly into being self-employed or because they feel there are very little other options? Because I don't think as a personal trainer now, if you want to make a decent amount of money, there are a few genuinely successful companies where you can do that. And I know a number of people that have worked or still work for you who you've managed to create location freedom by being employed for you and learn all the stuff that make you guys amazing coaches. But there are very few companies like you. There are very few companies like where we worked at Optimal Performance. There's a lot of people now because there's maybe people aren't treating the staff well, or there just isn't many options. That people go self-employed when they just want to be trainers. And this is why they fail, because they don't have that business head like you said you grew up with.
But to be honest, most trainers probably don't want to be self-employed. They don't want to be entrepreneurs. They shouldn't need to be entrepreneurs. But there's no career paths. There's no career paths in the fitness industry, right? What are you meant to do? There's no like, you don't. It's not like in the finance world. You do finance, then you work for a big four, and then you continue grow your career. Like, what are you actually meant to do in the fitness industry? There's not much. There's not much outside of trying to somehow figure it out self-employed. That's why there's a high turnover in the industry, because you do it for a few years, you realize it's not what you thought it would be, and you leave. Or you just continue to struggle for years and years and years. And many do that as well. So you are effectively forced into it. And I've tried to really build some careers within RNT where people can actually genuinely have a career and not, there's a couple of you in my team now who started as coaches, but now, they don't do much coaching, and they are building technology, and they're managing teams, and they're recruiting, and that's very fulfilling for me to see, because these are people that would have quit the industry otherwise. They had enough. They didn't want to be self-employed. They didn't want to go down that route of, going on Instagram and asking for clients and doing that. They don't want to play that game. So it's very difficult, and it's a difficult industry to navigate, and it's why we see a high turnover. But there's no other option, is there?
So, looking back, cast your mind back to sort of 2017 when you made what is a scary leap to go self-employed for the first time. And I know a story about you guys when you and your former business partner ran the numbers and worked out, because you are forever the realist in the room, what you were likely to make in your first year, which obviously you massively exceeded. What was that moment like when you realized this is going to be tough for the first year? How did you keep going at that moment where it's like, oh, wow, we're taking a pay cut?
To be honest, I never really felt scared when I started RNT. I felt, looking back, the reason why, completely honestly, the reason why I had a business partner was because I wanted to share the confidence element. But, it soon transpired I didn't need it. I didn't need a business partner. So when I look back, for me, it was just all in. I didn't have a plan B. The only option was to make it work. And I had a very clear idea of what I wanted to do. So, I didn't really have I've taken a pay cut, because luckily I don't have big overheads. And even now, as my income has increased, I've never increased my overheads. I live off very minimal money. And if you put me back on a 20 grand salary, I'd still live completely comfortably. So for me, I don't have any overheads. I don't have a luxury lifestyle. So that really helped. And I knew I barely needed to make any money to live comfortably. And I think that's a mistake people make, is when their income grows, their lifestyle overheads increase. So then there suddenly becomes a pressure of, shit, I need to make this much money just to live my life. Whereas for me, it was like, I'll be happy earning $1,000 a month. And I can continue to live, which is still the case. So for me, that freedom means that I can enjoy my work and not have to worry about sort of paying the bills.
And I suppose that allows you to do better work because you're not needing the next client to come in. You can actually be creative because you'll have more money to put away each month. Because of that, your lifestyle hasn't crept. You're in a stronger position mentally because you mentioned earlier how many people have all this stuff coming in. You've got enough coming in with the business. You don't need that financial stress as well.
Yeah, and I think maybe the thing is that doesn't appeal to everyone. Some people want the fast cars, they want the watches, they want this and that. But for me, that was never the thing. And I used to get asked, "Oh, why do you work so hard? Don't you want to buy a nice car?" And I'm not in it for a nice car. Like for me, this is a bigger purpose. It's a bigger calling. I want to build a business that lasts and to build a business that makes a difference. And for me, that's playing the long game. I'm more interested in what can we build in 10 years, not what car can I buy next summer. I mean, that's not going to change anyone's life, and that's just going to cause me more stress.
Agreed. You mentioned you had a very clear idea of what you wanted to do when you started. A lot of people who go into business struggle with this, of creating, they know where the end goal is, but creating that map. If you had someone come up to you and says, "Oh, we're looking to start a business," what are the things that they should start to think about that maybe they're not thinking about right now to be able to put a good plan in place?
Yeah, what would you do to start a business? So I'm assuming you're talking to fitness people, right?
Yes, let's say that.
So firstly, I would carve out what is it that you're really good at? What's effectively your niche? What is it the area that you're good at? So for example, you found out recently that you're better at mentoring coaches become better coaches than helping Susie, the 40-year-old lawyer, get in shape. So that's a good example of finding what you're good at. So you want to find something you're good at that comes naturally and that you can do effectively in your sleep. Right? That's probably the first step. And the second thing is, okay, so what kind of business do you want to build? Do you want to build a one-man band business where it's just you and maybe an assistant, and you have very much a lifestyle business where you work with X amount of clients that helps you pay your bills and a bit more, and you have the freedom to enjoy your life, which I think is very doable, right? If that's what you want to do. But the only problem with that is if you stop what you're doing, it's game over. So the pros and cons, you got to weigh them up, right? Do you want low stress but lots of freedom, or do you want to build an actual business where it runs without you? It has a valuation, it scales, but with it comes more stress, more overheads, all the problems with HR, team, getting screwed over, legal disputes, whatever it is, all the things that come with a business. Do you want that? So it's like understanding what do you actually want. So I think that's a really big thing, by the way, because that will change how you approach the whole business completely. When you only need a few clients to pay for your lifestyle and a bit more, you approach it completely different to right, I actually want to build a business. How you approach your marketing, your sales, your delivery system, everything will change. So I think that's important. And then it's asking a question of so what kind of medium do you prefer for marketing? You're a writer. Are you an audio guy? If you found your voice in podcasting, are you a video guy? What's your thing? And then with that, communicate your message to your niche avatar in that medium. To begin with, don't try and be a jack of all trades. I'm going to do every single type of, if you love writing, but you hate going on video, don't create a marketing model that revolves around you going on reels every day. For example, I when I first started the business, I and I still don't really enjoy video that much. I prefer writing, right? As you know, and for me it was right. So for me it was, okay, I'm going to try and get featured in key websites. I'm going to write articles. This is back then. Things are a bit different now. Blogging and articles isn't as big a thing now as it was then. But for me, I just leaned into my strength. So I think that's a key part of leaning into your strengths and just playing to that, and then plug in the weaknesses with either team, systems, software, or just not even bothering with them.
So when it comes to those roadblocks, what are some of the biggest barriers you faced in growing RNT, and how have you overcame them?
Biggest barrier, people. Just finding good people, dealing with people, managing people. Just finding good people is always it's a continuous struggle. I'm always thinking, how can we get better people? Because ultimately, you need a good team, right? Team is what builds a business.
So back from a little bit of a technical difficulty, you were on about people, finding good people. So to follow up on that, what are the ways you now have learned to find good people within your business? How do you find those people?
And it's definitely the hardest thing. And I think one thing has helped a lot recently is I now don't do it as much. So my wife is now in the business, and she's been working in RNT now for about 10 months, but she's a world-class operator. So when it comes to people, process, systems, operations, she's absolutely world-class. Like if we were hiring someone of her caliber on a payroll, we'd be talking hundreds of thousands. Like it's that's the sort of caliber of person we've got now. So luckily she handles a lot of that now, which has improved the quality of our hiring quite significantly because she's brought structure into it. She's brought process, and she's brought clearer mechanisms of identifying good and potentially not so good employees. So that's been a really big part of it. The second thing I'd say is just having a really stringent hiring process. So we make people jump through more hoops now to apply, and we also have better application processes. So if it's coaching, there's more on the spot feedback. There's more on the spot coaching. There's more case studies, and I think we just now can see the difference between someone who's in it for a real career and someone who just hasn't got what it takes. The biggest problem we have is finding high performers. That's the real issue, is finding people that can withstand the pressure and the intensity that we go at and keep good quality work without breaking. And not to say that it's not to say it in a bad way, but I like to work fast, and my core senior team all have very, very high standards. So they will, as a result, the culture is very fast paced, and it is very much like you need to have your shit together to work here. So I think really identifying what we're looking for and being very ruthless about that has been the key thing in starting to find good people now.
Do you think those three criteria you mentioned earlier about having to be in shape, show the built muscle, and stay in shape is a huge part of finding those right people, because that shows they can delay gratification and they can stay the course for a long time with something?
Yeah, I think it's a key part. I think real evidence of showing big changes in your physique is important. I think the biggest one we've found is like the ability to take feedback and how you respond to feedback and how you respond to pressure. You can immediately tell if someone's got it or not from just that. I think when someone tears your work apart, your response to that will tell you a lot about yourself, I think.
One thing you mentioned earlier on is obviously you started this with a business partner. Obviously, we all work together. If someone's starting a business now, would you recommend in hindsight having a business partner? Because this is something people are split on. Do you think this has helped you to get where you are? Or in hindsight, do you think it was maybe a safety net that I didn't need?
A safety net I didn't need. But also, I think if you're going to get a business partner, the only reason I'm not against business partners, but I think if you're going to have a business partner, there's two things that need to happen. One is you need to have the same values and the same mission and the same outlook on life. And the second thing is you need to have complementary skill sets, not be able to just do the same thing. But yeah, if you're just doing the same thing, but there's two of you and you're wasting your time, you might as well not have a business partner. And the second thing is if you're not aligned on values and outlook on life, it's gonna end very quickly. So I think those are the two things. When I've seen successful business partnerships work, have been because they're completely complementary. Just use the Apple example of that didn't work completely for longevity, but it got the ball rolling. And that Steve Wozniak was a technician, and Steve Jobs was an excellent marketer, so it worked really, really well. That's a good example of complementary skill sets.
I think that's huge in terms of, especially like one of the things I've learned. Like I was diagnosed with ADHD, like quite severe ADHD last year now, and I've done a lot of soul searches since that, and started looking back on some of the things that I've struggled with that maybe I felt like a fraud or just like an idiot or lazy or procrastinating, and I've realized since like how long I've had it and the importance of systems. So having I now value, where possible financially, if someone can do something better than me, I am going to do that to free up more of my time to do what I do very well. I'm very much a firm believer it's like there is an element of working on your weaknesses that needs to happen, but I think it's like systemize your weaknesses so you can spend more time doing your strengths. There are things that Akash does so well that has made RNT the juggernaut that it is today. And if you had less time to do those things, or you had someone trying to do those things in a slightly different way, you wouldn't have got where you were today.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. I think you just lean into your strengths. I think it's with my team as well. I don't force my team to. This is not to say you get sloppy, because I think everyone has to do things that they don't enjoy, right? But you want to lean in, spend most of your time on your strengths, and either hire or just don't worry about the weaknesses for now. So I know for me, I know you said earlier that I'm very organized and all these things, but I'm actually a bit in a business sense. I'm very chaotic, and I'm like off the charts creative. So I'm always throwing ideas. I'm always trying to mess with the plan. Whereas my wife, for example, is very operational, process, see things through. So that balance is perfect. There's a really good book called Rocket Fuel that describes this relationship between a visionary and an integrator. A visionary is very much ideas, wants to push things forward at a million miles an hour. Wants everything's done yesterday. An integrator is the one that keeps everything ticking, keeps the day-to-day operations working really, really well. And I think the best person you can find, this is in a business partnership, would work really well, is a visionary and integrator. But even anyone who wants to grow an actual business is to find, if you're more of a visionary, is to find your integrator. I think it's the best hire you can make. For many people listening, the starting hire may just be a PA, it may just be an assistant. And they can be the person that plugs the holes, does the admin, does the bits that you don't want to do. But as that grows and grows and grows, it could be someone more of an operations manager or a business manager, or, ultimately like a integrator or coup, as you might say.
I think that's an incredibly valuable bit of advice. And it's one of those things that I agree with, and anyone listening to this, I think should go back and watch that little bit again. Because when you start to look at, I think that's a bit of advice, when you start to look at other businesses and you realize how much that's in place without even people realizing it. Like the way you just described your relationship within the business sense is very similar to if you look at Muscle Nerds, for example. Luke is as visionary as it gets, as ADHD chaos, off the Richter scale kind of guy you'll ever meet. But amazing, brilliant. Zoe is the controller. And it seems that we've got this similar balance there. But let's talk about like Mrs. V. Like you are, I'm soon to be a father, I see. And having your partner in the business, a lot of people would find that incredibly challenging and a real test. But it seems like this works beautifully. What I think are the ways that you've managed to get a success in keeping your relationship as good as it is while working together in a very high pressure environment?
Yeah, so there's constantly 3 hats that we're evolving. We've got like a business partnership hat, husband and wife hat, and then like soon to be mum and dad hat that we're constantly juggling. So boundaries is really, really important, understanding what the boundaries are. And then the second thing is really, really crystal clear communication. So, we do a weekly check-in every single week. My wife and I, we call it, we ask, we do 5 things. First thing is like, what do we appreciate of each other? Second thing is, what are our to-dos that we need to get done? Third thing is, what are our plans for the good times for this week coming up? Fourth is opportunities to improve. And this is the big one. This is where you basically, we call it opportunities to improve. It's really called feedback. And this is where you can speak openly and honestly about each other and what's not working well and the improvements that need to be made. And then the last bit is wins for the week. So we can acknowledge like what's happened in the week. But what we added recently is, as well as opportunities to improve from a personal perspective, is like our RNT relationship check-in. So we check in on each other from a business sense. Are there issues that are going on? Like, am I, lying in bed at 10:30 at night, like, oh, did you send that email? Which I used to do a lot, but now I don't. Or just, whatever it could be. I think the key thing is crystal clear communication. And one thing that's worked, when in our marriage so far, is just never really leaving anything under the rug and not being afraid to just say how it is, whatever may be going on. And just that complete honesty and clear line of communication has been the bedrock of our personal relationship, but also then into our business relationship.
is that something that's been I'm looking mainly at the opportunities side of this here, and also in terms of like the RNT business check-in that you guys do, because I know how passionate you are. I know how driven you are. And as you said, you used to be the guy who's like, did you send that email? Was that a really, really challenging thing to do when you started implementing that sort of like weekly check-in system of being able to take probably brutal but sometimes very personal feedback, both personally and professionally now? Like,
so we've done it for 3.5 years now. Yeah, so we've done it for 3.5 years, this weekly check-in. And it actually started back in 2019 when I was just so focused on the business, I was sort of neglecting the relationship a bit. So, I saw this, a friend of mine told me about it, and I was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. So I started it, and it's just become a weekly rhythm that we've kept ever since. Luckily, I take feedback on well. So, when she tells me how it is, especially because it's her, I just take it straight away because she knows me better than anyone else. So when I hear feedback from her, I'm like, right, I need to improve that. And most of the time, every single week, it's not every week there'll be issues, but if there are issues, it'll always be about my behavior in the business as opposed to hers. Yeah. And it's usually around poor communication. Whereas in my mind, the way I operate is like, in my head, I've already told everyone what needs to be done. But the reality is no one does. No one's been told anything. And I've just thought I told them in my head, or given them such a brief version that no one else understands. So improving my communication style is a key objective of mine right now, in being very crystal clear communication with my team and people I work with.
I absolutely love that. So I want to finish off with, I've got 3 relatively quick fire questions, but if you want to elaborate on them, absolutely feel free to. Name me one thing that you have changed your mind about since starting RNT. This could be fitness, business, lifestyle. One thing you've changed your mind of.
It's a really good question. What have I changed my mind about? The immediate one is probably related most to this podcast. It would probably be short-term packages for clients. I think I used to come from like the 12-week, get them ripped, move to the next one sort of mentality. Now I think I just play such a longer game with it all. Because I saw too many horror stories firsthand. Whereas before, I never saw them as often. But now I saw too many horror stories. I was like, I need to change that.
I love that. Tell me about one failure in your life that has turned out to be the biggest positive.
Not getting the grades back at school for law school. So I was always wanting to follow my father's footsteps, becoming a lawyer. But when I didn't get the grades, I could still become a lawyer, but I'd have to start applying to universities I'd not already heard of. So when it came to wanting to change to sports science, the decision was a lot easier, because even then I didn't have the grades for the sports science universities I wanted to go for either. But I was willing to work to make the jump rather than...
You're saying Birmingham wasn't your first choice?
No, it was. Birmingham was my first choice.
Good, I'm glad to hear it, as a Brummie here.
University of Birmingham was, I don't know if it still is now, but it was not actually number 1 when I was there. It overtook Loughborough that year. But then the jump I needed I was like, in my mind, I was going to do whatever it takes to get there. Whereas with law, I was like, wasn't that fast. And it made, at the time, it felt like, I felt like a failure. But looking back, it made the decision a lot easier.
I love that. So the last one, to end on a positive note, because you said you worked with 3,000 success stories. What is your favourite RNT transformation and why?
My best friend Shams. It's the top of the website, transformations list. I always mention it as my favourite transformation, probably because it showed people who have below par genetics that it's very possible to get into jaw-dropping, amazing shape. And that transformation inspired so many people. I can't recollect how many people have started that as their reason for starting this journey. It broke the internet when it got dropped. It has been copied more times than I can count. I've seen it plastered in all sorts of different Instagram pages. I've seen it pop on websites. it's been ripped off more than an account, and it just showed what's possible. So for me, that's always going to be my personal favorite, coupled with the fact that he's also one of my best friends. So there's just an extra personal meaning to the whole thing.
I'm going to add one more quick fire question based off that, because obviously there's a lot of people listening to that want to have a result that does that. If there's a coach listening to this and you can give him one bit of advice to help him get more consistent client results, what would it be?
Care more about the client's result than they do.
Love that. Mate, I've generally really enjoyed this. It's been far too long since we catched up, and this has been a great chat. I've taken so much away from that, and I've known you for probably close to a decade now, so this has been really, really fun. So where can people find you and RNT and maybe B3001?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me on, Simon.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. You can find me on Akash Vaghela on all platforms, or go to www.rntfitness.co.uk for to see more about RNT. If you want to take a free quiz that I have to see your readiness to transform, go to www.rntfitness.co.uk/transform. And it's a really cool free quiz that you can try out, and that'll give you a lot of value on the other side and sort of see where you're at with regards to starting a transformation journey. And then if you want to check out my book, go to Amazon and go Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, or just type my name in and you can get yourself a copy.
I started the podcast by bigging you and your business up. I'll end the podcast going back to my point about the website and go and read some of the case studies. Like, I've never seen a company give so much away in a case study in terms of this is what we've done step by step. And if you want to understand, if you're someone right now who doesn't believe what's possible, read some of these and you'll start to understand that you can achieve what any of these people have achieved.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No worries, man. Thank you very much for coming on.
Hey guys, thank you very much for watching the podcast. If you're like me and like to binge watch podcast episodes, click here for our most recent episode. And if you enjoy the show and want to be updated when new videos come live, click here to subscribe to the channel.